Welcome to Theater and Stream, a film podcast. I am Matt and that is Chuck, and this is episode 16. Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning is finally here, folks, and with it, Tom Cruise as the real-life superhero that is going to save the film industry. Or at least, that's what they want you to believe. We're going to be challenging that narrative. We're going to be talking about how Dead Reckoning stacks up with the rest of the franchise, and we're going to discuss its merits as a standalone film in today's featured review. If you want our full thoughts on the Mission Impossible series, I'd invite you to seek out our recent retrospective film series, in which we devoted 3 entire episodes to reviewing entries 1 through 6 of the Mission Impossible franchise. You're going to find that on our channel over as Theater and Stream episodes 8, 9, and 10. But the Mission Impossible talk is going to be coming up a little bit later in the show. First, we've got all the usual segments, starting with the film news of the week. And Chuck, from what I understand, it has been a busy week.
Pretty eventful. A lot going on. Initially, I was just going to kind of, we had strike update time. I guess I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm getting really ahead of myself. Because more importantly is what's going to be happening at this really lame Emmys show that is going to be happening, apparently. But we have the nominees announced. What do you make of them? Was there anything egregiously left off? Or were the only meritoriously deserving, nominees nominated?
Well, the thing that always strikes me about these more recent award shows is that with the Academy Awards, they've expanded the Best Picture category to 10 nominees. And so you get all of these nominees now in the Emmys and the Globes and the Oscars, where they're clearly sort of token nominees that they're including just so that more people will watch the telecast. And so you get all this just random crap in there. I don't think Wednesday has a chance of winning anything, but they need to include it because it was such a phenomena. And there's a bunch of stuff like that. I don't think Yellow Jackets has a chance to win anything, but they gotta include it. Or House of the Dragon even gotta include it. And so that's the thing that stuck out to me first, is they just kind of, I don't know, it kind of gives me an icky feeling when I see stuff like that, because I'm like, okay, clearly none of, this stuff is clearly only in here so that people will watch, and because you need more nominees.
That's unfortunate, because Wednesday is for the memes. It's for the TikTok generation. So how, are you even going to be providing them any TikTok-worthy moments to talk about? I don't think so. But when I look at these nominees, for the most part, it's everyone I would expect. I do like that Carrie Russell for The Diplomat is up there, but this comedy series thing that's up here right now, I take issue with. Why is the bear there? Why?
Yeah, it's not really a comedy.
It's not a comedy at all. It is pitch black, depressing culinary hell.
Yeah.
You might laugh at it, but it's not because it's, schmaltzy and wholesome like all the other bullshit that gets nominated in comedy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you got to wonder if that's part of their strategy, as far as, because I believe it's the people who are putting up the nominees, they're entering them as nominees, get to decide what category that they go into, and so I'm wondering if that's part of the strategy, if they think they have a better chance of winning in comedy than drama, because drama's pretty stacked this year. So that'd be my assumption. But yeah, I mean, as far as stuff that I saw that I really liked, surprises, of course I like seeing Andor getting a little bit of love. Not much on the acting side, which is kind of one of my qualms that I have, because I think a lot of the actors in that show were as good as anything, but it's getting some love at least.
Yeah. What the fuck is up with Daniel Radcliffe being nominated for limited series for a film that was on Roku? Is that just what happens because of the bizarre distribution system we have these days?
Yeah, I think so, because they like put limited series and TV movie in like the same sort of category now. And
That just feels
um
wrong. It feels unfair.
yeah. Yeah, because you're judging something that, can be anywhere from like an hour and a half to like a little over 2 hours probably against something that could be as long as like 8 or 10 hours. So it's like, yeah, this is sort of weird, but yeah,
So,
that's strange.
what do we make of shows graduating from limited series to ongoing? Is that dirty too?
That's interesting. That's because in this case, the White Lotus is probably the biggest one, and that I don't think there was anything nefarious behind that. I think it was literally a question of like, oh, this show did so well in its first season that we need to make more. And then Mike White, went off in
Obliged.
his like
Yeah.
little his writer's bubble and sort of penned a second season. And so yeah, I don't think there's anything nefarious behind that particular case, but I think you do bring up a good point that people in the future could use that as a way to sort of game the system. And so they need to be careful about that in the future.
Right on. What is with the
Um,
conspicuous absence of Yellowstone? Is that deserving? Is it like that? That is just a popular show. It does not mean that it is the best show, or like even has like some of the best technical or artistic features. So like, why is it just the creator? Is it just Taylor Sheridan being sour grapes that he didn't get nominated, or is this political?
it could be because, like I was just saying, like there are plenty of shows nominated that are only there for how popular they are. And Yellowstone, probably should have been one of those nominated, one of the Wednesdays or one of the House of the Dragons, and even more so than those shows because who watches awards telecasts? Old people.
Old
And
ass
so, and
people.
who watches Yellowstone?
Mm-hmm.
Old people. And so, like, if you wanted to get those eyeballs on your award show, why didn't you nominate Yellowstone? But then you nominated crap like Wednesday. It's an interesting question. I think it probably should have been in there somewhere, at least on like best drama, one of those like
Yeah.
I don't know, is it like 10 nominees, 8 or 10 nominees? It's like there are so many nominees in that category that probably should have been in there.
Yeah, but back in the day when like getting that one of those five noms used to fucking mean something. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like when even when like Beauty and the Beast was getting nominated for Best Picture at the Oscars, like that meant something. Now it's just a like you're just opening the door for things that don't deserve it. It's just like those stupid audience awards. So I don't know. I wonder about who is actually going to win in some of these instances, because it would be pretty pathetic if like Jenna Ortega walked away with some Emmy for that performance, because that like they're probably just going to game that system so she does, just
Yeah,
for the
it's
sake of
possible.
just for the notoriety of it. So I guess that
Mhm.
brings us into our kind of what we're going to do to transition out of this. We're
Yeah.
going to do a should win, will win sort of game with the Emmys this year. Why don't you get started right off the bat with the first category being drama series?
Yeah, so for drama series, I think what will win is going to be Succession, and what should win is going to be Succession.
There you go.
And
Yeah.
this is a pretty easy one, I think. It's the final year for the show. It's been a favorite among voters in the past, and this is, it's the last time it can win, and I think it will, and it's totally deserving too.
I'm just going to have to, echo you there, because I was not impressed with The Crown. House of the Dragon is perfunctory. The Last of Us just doesn't deserve it. The
No.
White Lotus and Yellow Jackets. I haven't seen the second season of The White Lotus all the way through yet, but from what
Mhm.
I've seen, it maybe deserves to be in the consideration. But Yellow Jackets definitely
Yeah.
not. If you were really being cool, they'd give it to Andor, but Succession
Mhm.
deserves it. Like, it would
Definitely.
be egregiously wrong not to give it Succession. As for comedy series, I'm going to have to confess, I've only seen partially Jury Duty, The Bear, and Wednesday. That's so I really can't comment on a lot of these, but I would like to see Jury Duty win just because I loved that concept. That kind of, because it's like a scripted thing. It's like the Joe Schmo show, from back in the day. But it was just I just had more fun watching that than I had watching anything. And The Bear is in the wrong category. It's probably the best show in this list, except for maybe Barry. But they're gonna give it to Ted Lasso. But I think Jury Duty should get it just for originality.
Yeah, I think you're probably right there that Ted Lasso will win because they're still like for some reason up in the air about whether the show's going to continue or not, which I think is really odd. But ostensibly, that's what I thought too. But they have yet to come out and answer people's questions as to whether or not that's the case, and so. I think what they're going to try and do, if they can, is continue the show without Jason Sudeikis because I think he wants to be done. But I guess we'll see. So
how do you continue a show without the named character in the show anymore?
I have no idea. But yes, I think they're going to use this to their advantage, and they're going to want to use the fact that everyone thinks it's the final season to win that category. But of course, I think what should win is Barry. So because I've always been in Barry's corner. But yeah, we can transition limited series. What are your thoughts on that?
I think they should give it to Beef. I'm really not a fan of Dahmer as much as I was when I first saw it, but I think Dahmer is probably going to win, but Beef probably should win just because that was such a powerful experience. I'm glad that it's over, but if you're gonna give it to anybody, give it to the show that actually got my jubblies rumbling a little bit. But I think Dahmer is just gonna win because of the creative and executive inertia behind the man who created it.
Yeah. Yep. I'll echo what you said there. Should win Beef, will win Dahmer, because I think Beef does have a shot, but I still think it's probably going to play out in Dahmer's favor because of the sensationalized, and all the controversy behind it too. There's no such thing as bad press, and I think that'll also push it forward.
And people know that story, and that works in its favor. What the fuck is Obi-Wan Kenobi doing here? That is like the sorriest examples of insipid modern streaming content. And I don't even know what Fleischman is in Trouble is, or Daisy Jones in The Six. What the fuck is going on here? No wonder that everyone's on strike. All right, lead actor in a drama series. Seeing Jeff Bridges on there, I forgot The Old Man was even a show. But
yeah, same.
But this category is also a history setting because we got 3 leads from Succession up there. Are they gonna, does Kieran Culkin finally get his day in the sun? I think he fucking deserves it. It should be Kieran Culkin. But I only see Pedro Pascal winning this. I know Bob Odenkirk. I don't know. There's a lot you think. All these guys are like neck and neck. They all probably fucking deserve it. Except Jeff Bridges. I want Kieran Culkin to win it. But I think it's probably going to be either Bob or Pedro who do.
Okay, interesting. Yeah. I think it's probably going to be Culkin should and Culkin will. And the reason why is because Brian Cox is, just kind of the nominee they threw in there. I don't think he will win because everybody's aware of the fact now that he was only in 3 episodes of the season.
That's true.
Strong has already gotten his just desserts, and so I don't think it'll be him. Bob Odenkirk has not been, even though this is the last year that he could possibly win it because it's the last season of Better Call Saul also, he has not been a favorite to win this, so I don't think he will. I do think you have a point with Pascal. Last of Us could just wipe the entire award show, and I think that would be a really big shame. But I do think I think it is Culkin, should, and will.
Lead actress. I think Sarah Snook deserves it.
Mm-hmm.
Bella Ramsey's gonna win it.
Oh God, do you really? Okay,
I really do think so. I really do think so.
Oh man, I think she has less of a chance than Pascal. I think I don't know. They don't generally like giving awards to kids. I think historically, and so I think Snook should and will. Oh God, I don't know. I think Kerry Russell might be the upset in this one. I think
would not be upset by that upset.
Yeah, same. I finished. I didn't put it on our watch list, but I did finish The Diplomat this week, and I think she was very good in that. So I think it is between Russell and Snook in both. Should and will. It's between Russell and Snook, and I wouldn't be sad if either one of them won.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's cycle forward here a little bit. There we go. Lead actor, comedy, lead actress in comedy. Why don't you take this away? Because I think you've seen more of this stuff.
Yeah. I think, oh gosh, should Bill Hader, I think, will Jeremy Allen White.
Ooh.
And
yes.
I think it's because, I haven't seen The Bear other than a couple episodes of the first season. So I wouldn't be sad if he won. From what I understand, from what I've read, he seems to deserve it. But I think this is his year. The Bear was more of a phenomena this season than it was last season. I think that show picked up millions of viewers this season, and it's way more popular than it was in its first season. And so, I think it'll be him. And I would like to see Bill Hader get it because, again, this is the final year he possibly could. But from what I understand, White probably has this in the bag.
My feeling, was that actually it should be Martin Short. Only Murders in the Building, just because of all these dudes, he's the one that I like, the character performance that I genuinely would like to hang out with, even if he's just like giving me secondhand embarrassment the whole time. Because I don't know, Jeremy Allen White, putting this man in comedy just feels wrong. His character does not make you laugh. The show only makes you laugh in like a comedy of menace kind of way, where you're like, oh God, everything's going so badly. So this is I don't know. It feels like category fraud. Is this the complaint that I should be, this is where you file it under? So yeah, Jeremy Allen is probably going to be the guy that wins it, but give it to the old guy who actually makes me laugh. Actress, I really think that Natasha Lyonne deserves to win and should win. I think because Poker Face was a really, really good show, and she was the best part about it. And it was nice to see her outside of Orange is the New Black, even though she's basically the same person in everything she does. But yeah.
You know what? I think for this category, I'm gonna sit out the should of this one because I haven't seen any of these.
Fair enough.
I haven't seen any of these shows, but I think it's probably gonna be Quinta Brunson.
I know.
They've been on a hot streak lately, and I really don't have any opinions other than I don't want Jenna Ortega to win because. But yeah, I think it'll be.
And Rachel Brosnahan has a trophy shelf that's just heaving under the weight of all the gold she's won. All right, so what's the next category here? Technically, are we We're
on to
supporting
actor in limited series.
Actor in limited series. Okay.
Yeah. So
I don't think I have. Yeah, I don't have graphics for it. I don't think for that deep. All right, but we got Taron Egerton and Blackbird, Kumail Nanjiani and Welcome to Chippendales, Evan Peters as Jeffrey Dahmer, Daniel Radcliffe as Weird Al, Michael Shannon from George and Tammy, and Steve Ewan from Beef. Honestly, I think the should win here is Taron Egerton, but the will win is Stephen Yeun. I think this is Stephen Yeun's year. And even though I think I could, like, my dark horse here, like, or like my exception that proves the rule, is that Evan Peters is going to be the one that wins it. He's like my second win, is going to be. Like, I don't know. I'm hedging my bet a little bit.
I would say should, for me, it's Stephen Yeun. I thought he was great in that show in Beef. Will win. I think it's Peters. I think I don't think enough people saw Blackbird. I think that's the only show. That's the only problem that show has. I did think he was great in it. Taron Egerton was good in that show, but I think it's gonna go to Peters because I think he's just the favorite.
Yeah, I think we were the only people who watched it, and some stand-up comedian that talked about it on Joe Rogan. About loving, but he wasn't even talking about Taron Egerton. He was talking about the other guy, Paul Walter Hauser. Mm-hmm. That's who he was actually talking about. Yeah. All right. And then we got,
actress limited series. I'll start with this one. This one, Kaplan, Fleischman is in Trouble, Chastain for George and Tammy, Fishback for Swarm, Catherine Hahn for Tiny Beautiful Things, Riley Keough for Daisy Jones and the Six, and Ali Wong for Beef. For me, this one is going to be should win. I think it's Fishback. She was pretty incredible in that show in Swarm. Will win. It's probably going to be Wong, I think, because...
I was going to say the exact same thing.
Yeah, it's... I mean, those three, Fleischman, George and Tammy, and Daisy Jones, again, and Tiny Beautiful Things, not enough people saw those. I think that, and not enough people saw Swarm either. So, I mean, I think the only reason Wong wins Beef for this one is because so many more people just watched it. So,
true. That's a good point. Yeah. All right. And are we going to do supporting actor and actress as well?
Yeah, okay. Supporting actor, comedy.
In comedy. So my should win is for actor. We got Anthony Carrigan from Barry. He probably deserves it. Phil Dunster from Ted Lasso, Brett Goldstein from Ted Lasso, James Marsden, Jury Duty, Eben Moss-Barack from The Bear, Tyler James Williams, Abbott Elementary, and Henry Winkler from Barry. My should is James Marsden from Jury Duty, playing himself, like an exaggerated version of himself. But the will, I don't know. I'm gonna sit this one out because I don't watch Barry or Ted Lasso or Abbott Elementary, and I have been on the record about the category fraud of The Bear. So I'll let you to take it away.
Yeah, for me, I'm gonna should win. I'm gonna kind of hedge my bets here and say I'd be fine with either Carrigan or Winkler winning for Barry. And then Will, I think it's actually probably gonna go to Eben Moss-Backrack because I think that he's getting a lot of press for that role, and the guy is about to be in everything. That's true. He's getting so much. Getting so much more work now, and he's going to become a household name in the next year, I think. And I think
people know him from Andor, and
yeah,
and apart from the lead of the series, the heart of this show is his character and his performance. But he doesn't make me laugh. So he probably deserves an award of some kind. But yeah, well, that's the Emmys. Oh, that's
the one thing I did want to call out. The only other thing is the supporting actress category for drama. Okay. I do want to give a shout out. This was my only other surprisingly great nomination that I really liked was Megan Faye for The White Lotus, and I want to give her a shout out because that is, if people have seen The White Lotus season 2, she is the wife of Theo James's character, who is part of the two couples who are on vacation together. Okay.
And that lady. Okay.
Yeah, she was great. She has the single best scene in that entire series where because what her character is basically just rationalizing why she lets her husband cheat on her basically and why she lets it kind of continue, and her and Aubrey Plaza have the single best scene in that entire show. And so I want to give her a shout out, for not only that particular scene but also her entire performance. And so that was one of my surprise, like, ooh, this is great, sort of nominations. And but yeah, that's all I wanted to, the last sort of shout out I wanted to give.
Gotcha. Yeah, we always gotta say, good job, guys, when they actually get one right, because so many people just, that are deserving go ignored, never get their day in the sun, and pretty soon, all of the writers and actors in Hollywood are going to be out on the street, so they're going to be getting plenty of sun, because that strike is spicing up. The producers are, taking us in directions that we maybe didn't want to go, but here we are. Because there's a lot happening in this realm. Then we're gonna kind of dig into it a little bit at a time. It's at the end of my video, so I'm gonna accelerate to it. But it preceded a lot of the bigger news. But Ryan Murphy got into a big fat fight with the guild that he is a member of, but he is operating as a producer here because he's got 3 shows in production. And the East Coast, like the New York captain for the WGA strike, really went hard at him and published some allegations that people were being forced to do things that violated the strike or something like that. And those accusations apparently were unfounded because Ryan Murphy immediately turned around and fucking sued this guy and basically had him be forced to be stepped down as strike captain, which really put the whole situation in a weird place. And they had to make it clear, the WGA, it's hey, we're still putting pressure on this guy, and we're really sorry that this guy had to walk away, we're gonna miss his leadership, but yada 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 yada. What was actually going on here? What did you parse out of this?
Yeah, I think it's pretty cut and dry what's happening here, because Ryan Murphy is a man of many hats, and he's showrunner, writer, executive producer. He does a lot of things, and I think this is just a situation where people saw that he was working, and they didn't like that because they weren't working, because they're only writers. But this is a man who can do many different things, and they're why should you be able to work when I'm not working? And then he just pissed a lot of people off by doing that, I think, because they're out of work, so why shouldn't he be out of work? And yeah, they were just jealous, I guess. I honestly think that's what it is. I think they were why should this guy be able to keep working in other capacities when I can't, because I'm just a writer. I don't do all these other things. And yeah, I guess that would be my theory.
That makes a lot of sense. Because otherwise it came out of nowhere for me, right out of left field, because I'd been sleeping on the whole strike situation. I knew that SAG was whiffling and waffling about what they were going to do, but apparently the straw that broke the camel's back just fucking wrecked it, because now it's happening, and we could very well see a scenario where we have no new movies that are going to be or TV ready for 2024. We have enough of content to see us through to the end of 2023, but the things breaking down have really broken down. And I guess what's the lay of the land here?
Yeah, so SAG has gone on strike with the WGA. They voted with a 98% to 2% vote in the affirmative. So just crazy. But yeah, I want people to understand what exactly this means, because it's pretty bad if this is long term. And so what this means now is all productions are going to be shut down unless you can somehow get by with just actors from other countries. And I think only 1 or 2 shows have been able to swing that so far. We're looking at all of the fall film festivals being completely canceled. So among those festivals, I think would be Telluride, Toronto Film Festival, New York Film Festival, Tribeca. You're looking at a very, very barren San Diego Comic-Con next week because all of their panels are getting canceled.
Oh my God, what is even
yeah.
going to be the point of going?
I mean, just comics. If you're a
Yeah.
comic book person, you're probably going to be in heaven because you don't have to deal with all the film and TV garbage.
All
Now
the
it's
weeboos
just,
running around.
yeah, it's all about the comics again. So, in that respect, it might be a good Comic-Con to go to if you're a comic book person. But yeah, and then just, canceled, film premieres are probably going to be canceled for the most part. Press junkets, interviews, all that behind the scenes, like press stuff, gone. And so, yeah, we are looking at the next, if this goes on for 1 or 2 months, I think it might be okay. Realistically, Hollywood has about 6 months of film releases they can put out and about 4 months of TV releases because of the faster turnaround time. But if this goes any longer than a couple months, this is going to be pretty bad.
Shit. Because what happens if they don't figure this out in time and the well's still dry when the time comes to refill everything? How, are they just gonna hit refresh and just reorganize everything and just act like everything's chill and that, oh yeah, look, here's something that you haven't watched in a while, because they know.
Yeah.
They have the data.
Yeah, I mean, we're probably looking at a lot of reruns, a lot of showing movies on net or on cable TV, like basic cable. How they used to do on ABC and CBS, the Sunday night movie. They're gonna do stuff like that now, and because I mean, even reality TV is gonna be shut down a lot because the thing that people have to keep in mind is a lot of TV presenters, a lot of game show hosts are in SAG. They are part of SAG. And so even reality TV is probably not going to get by through this. So yeah, we will see though. But yeah, I think you're looking at a lot of reruns if this goes on. And luckily us here at Theater and Stream have sort of walled ourselves off from stuff like this where, if this does happen, we can always do retrospectives. We can always do our special segment episodes. So we're pretty walled off from the consequences of this. But yes, it could get pretty bad.
And maybe it's just an invitation for people to go outside and read a book, listen to some music, make art themselves. I don't know. Maybe we don't have to just watch shit all the time, because I don't know. We're getting closer and closer to a very, very dystopian state of affairs, because there's a key part of the breakdown with SAG, with the producers, was this whole situation where, if you're a background actor, they just want to scan you, put your information in a database and just plug you in when they need you for $200 one time. How did they think that was reasonable, let alone possible? How I can't conceive of anyone who would be okay with that.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because since the story you're referring to is basically that they want to pay extras for one day of work and then use their likeness in perpetuity in other films and TV. And they sort of the studios revealed themselves for the weird cartoon villains that they are this week with this story. And then also that story about how they want the writers to lose their apartments. They're willing to drag the writer's strike out till at least October, because that's when they think writers will start losing their apartments. So they really revealed themselves for the cartoon villains that they are this week. But yes, as far as this AI extras thing is concerned, it's funny because since this story came out, the AMPTP came out with a statement saying no, you're getting it all wrong. We want to do this, yes, but we will compensate people the bare minimum for if we use their likeness in other films. So, it was kind of one of those situations where they thought they were throwing water on the fire, but they were basically like, yes, we do want to do this, but we'll be sure to throw those extras an extra $100 every time we want to use their likeness, and so it's pretty
and what
bad.
they'll do is when they have a database of millions of potential extras, like you and I could become extras in Hollywood by that logic. We would just have to get our bodies scanned and sent in.
Yeah, pretty much.
And then we could be extras. And then all they'd have to do is just never use an extra more than once.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
They could do that. They could take like the look of an extra from such a large database of people that the extra no longer resembles any living human, so they can protect themselves from that. Be like, somebody could be like, hey, that looks like me, but then the studios could come back and say like, actually, this extra was made using the compositions of like 100,000 different people.
Yeah.
So nobody could possibly make that case. And so, yes, it is very scary. And, just like their compatriots at the WGA are trying to, SAG is also very concerned about the use of AI in the future of film, as they should be.
Jeez Louise, yeah. It's a dystopian nightmare we're living in, people. So, I don't know, maybe the proletariat needs to rise up. Maybe we need a full Marxist takeover of Hollywood, burn the studios to the ground, let blood flow through the streets. Something's got to give. Because otherwise you wind up in a situation where you have people thinking that they're being dosed with nanobots in the Mountain Dew at their local AMC. Because, like, I look at my quaint little AMC and the problems it has. People are still checking in every day on Minot Whiners and Complainers about that AMC and whether that theater's fixed yet. Because you don't dare go to a movie in that theater. Like in that particular unit where that AMC is boiling you alive. But because of Sound of Freedom, there's a whole cohort of people who are being drug out of their basements, drug away from their computer monitors and their phones and message boards. And they're going to a movie because they think it proves or validates something about their view of the world, which is that there's a Rothschild family conspiracy to harvest the blood of untold millions of children who are trafficked around the world. And they believe that wholeheartedly. And the people who believe that wholeheartedly are the people that this movie is about, and the guy who is starring in the film. They believe this. They think it's really something happening in the world. And that's fine for them to believe that. There are people who believe that this planet's going to burn to a crisp in 5 years. You can believe whatever the fuck you want. But there's this strange pushback against this movie and what's real about what it portrays because of the zaniness of the beliefs behind the people, involved in it. And so, yeah, this is a movie that's, was been in the can for 5 years. Jim Caviezel made this thing a long time ago. It was kind of lost in the flotsam and jetsam of the Fox deal when Disney bought Fox. And for a while there, it was just not going to get released at all because Disney looked at it and they were like, who the fuck is this for? Because it didn't really fit with their worldview. Because this is a movie that was made for the people who went to the Michael Bay's Benghazi movie. What was that called again? I can't remember.
13 hours?
13 hours. Yeah, like this is operator porn, but it's also empathy porn. I'll just talk about the movie for a little bit here. It is a very competently made and very grim and stark portrayal of human trafficking as it actually looks like. Like in practical terms, this is what it is. It's like, because the beginning of the movie, you just see this very pretty, well-dressed lady walk into some slum in some Latin American country, and finding a cute little girl and her little brother and saying, "Oh, you guys are so cute. Where is your dad? Can I meet him?" Meeting the dad, saying that she's a talent scout and that he should bring his children to her office in another, city so that they can be photographed and auditioned for stuff. And what ends up happening, of course, because as soon as this dad shows back up to pick his kids up, this office has been completely stripped. All the kids that were there are gone. All the adults that were there are gone. And they've all been brought into the human smuggling thing. It's like, that is probably what it really does look like. And what follows is, tracking what happens to the sister and brother, and then how they eventually intersect with a guy named Tim Ballard, who is a part of like Homeland Security or the FBI or some shit, who his job is to catch pedophiles. And then you move on to him. This is like 40 minutes into the movie. You finally move on to Tim Ballard, and it's him working with a pedophile at the end of the chain who, like later in the timeline is going to the gross dude in Tijuana and paying him to have sex with a little boy, and trying to get from that guy to the guy that actually has the kid, and then realizing, oh shit, like there's something even bigger behind that guy. And knowing that this little boy's sister is still out there, still in the system, drives Tim Ballard in real life, drove him to like walk away, like go rogue, go full Liam Neeson in real life, instead of operating under his, mission parameters. He doesn't listen to the men in Washington, and he like sets up this massive sting where he creates a pedophile hotel because he's just hoping that he catches this girl he's looking for in the net, and he doesn't. And that's where it just keeps getting more and more unbelievable. But from what I've read, this movie hews very closely to what is true. Now, what is, dubious is what the real Tim Ballard, says about what's going on in the world. And it's probably dubious to look at what he does, like with some skepticism, because his whole like nonprofit organization, they're like non-governmental, going out there and rescuing kids like they're Blackwater, like they're a charity or something. And there's, concerns about how he does what he does. But the movie itself is worth watching. It's fucking hard to watch. You don't see anything, as awful as what you see in, Palm Trees and Power Lines, for example. But it's a competently made film. The score is very powerful and scary. It's done by the guy that works with Guillermo del Toro. I forget his name. But like, it has a genuinely competent, crew behind it. It's got Bill Camp as some kind of like weird pedophile hunter who operates in Colombia named Vampiro. And he kind of chews scenery and has fun with it. But one must look beyond all of the histrionics of today, because like, this is a totally fine movie that is saddled with all kinds of labels and associations because of how it's been delivered to us and the zany bullshit said by the guys involved in it, on podcasts and stuff. Because after the Disney didn't want this, it got picked up by Angel Studios, which is a over-the-top distribution service, an expression I've never heard before. But it's they're just a Christian boutique streaming platform that makes special content for that audience. And they were the ones to buy this. Because, a lot of people in the really wacky, Utah Mormon evangelical community probably do believe that there are adrenochrome swilling elites out there in the world. And this is the movie that supports their worldview. And of course we can't have that. But this movie should probably still be seen. If you can handle it. I know that this isn't for everybody, but it is not a faith-based movie. God only gets mentioned in the most perfunctory of senses. There's not like people praying constantly, and like Jesus doesn't get invoked. This would have been a genuine Hollywood release were it not for circumstance and, industry stuff. So I don't know if this had just been released by Fox, I don't think it would have been treated nearly the way it's being treated.
Yeah, I mean, from what I understand, it probably would have just been dumped, like
Yes.
on I don't know, like a VOD platform or something, and just been like,
Absolutely.
here,
Yeah.
the only reason, because from what I understand, yeah, like you said, this isn't a religious movie at all. The only reason that it might be is because they filmed this like weird pickup that's at the end of the movie of Jim Caviezel
That's
like
weird.
talking,
Yeah.
yeah, like
Yeah.
talking directly to the camera, like, and just being like, I guess he has like I haven't seen the movie, but I have heard about this like 3-minute monologue that he like gives the camera at the end of the movie that they just Angel Studios
Yeah.
filmed. It's the only part of the movie that they've like filmed themselves, that they added to the movie after they bought it. And yeah, I'm glad that you're able to be the voice of reason on this movie and say that it's actually a decent, as far as the good tenets of a good movie go,
Yeah.
plot, characters, camera work, music, sound design, that all that stuff is sound, because this movie is so tainted by like both sides, where everybody's acting so predictable about this movie. Like on one side you have these Christian people that are like, I need to uplift this movie because my pastor said so, or my favorite right-wing YouTube commentator said so, and this is the hill I'm gonna die on. And then on the other side you have all these like film journos that are like, I need to fucking kill this movie with clickbait articles that are like 10 reasons why you shouldn't like Sound of Freedom, or
Yeah.
Sound of Freedom is doing gangbusters at the box office, but here's why you shouldn't like it. Just bullshit clickbait like that, and everybody's just acting so predictably towards it. How they, how their side says they should act, and I'm glad that you can kind of be the voice of reason here.
Because that's the thing. I was reminded as I was watching this and like looking at the conversation, I was reminded a lot of Cuties. It's funny, but it's like everything's inverted. And what's bizarre about Cuties is that the message of that movie, I haven't seen it myself, I'll just be clear, but from what I understand, it's very socially conservative. The reaction that people are having to it, says a lot about their worldview. Because like if you were looking at Cuties and saying, oh, it's degenerate, it's child porn, you're misunderstanding that this movie is projecting a message that you agree with. You know what I mean? Like there is a nuanced way. We're kind of like watching Salo, like 100 Days of Sodom, like, or even something as as awful and reprehensible as like a Serbian film. Like eventually something gets so like twisted around where it's like, but aha, like that was entirely the point. And eventually you just have to stop being so ridiculous and just take something in if you're actually able to stomach it. And this is a movie that doesn't chop your head off. It always cuts away, but it shows you enough to know that you're seeing something terrible. Like because they show the what's happening to the little girl by showing a whiskeyed up white gringo guy, wearing shorts and an opened up button up, stumbling into the room, and she's sitting on the bed, and then they tastefully pan away as very grim strings play. So yeah, like it's an artful movie, and I will say that the really fantastical stuff where Jim Caviezel goes full Solid Snake and like inserts himself into the Amazon so he can try and find this warlord that is keeping this little girl as a sex slave, and then extra gets her out of there while also killing the bad guy. Like it has to be fake, it has to not be true, but it's pulled off in such a Hollywood way, but so competently. I don't know, like like that's where I was like, holy shit, like this would have been totally solid in any other circumstance. But Jim Caviezel has a Jesus complex. And Angel Studio does this sneaky thing where because in that sales pitch at the end of the movie, Caviezel's basically saying, hey, go onto this website and buy another ticket so somebody else can see this movie. Pay it forward. So you have people buying their own tickets and then like putting down money to buy more tickets. So part of the box office success for this movie is kind of fake. because it's just the unique business model that Angel Studios utilizes. Because they will show their stuff like before churches, and then they'll pass the collection plate, and then all that money gets added to the collective box office take for a movie. But half of those tickets are for people who actually haven't seen it. It's kind of like like our North Dakota governor Doug Burgum giving $20 gift cards to everyone who gives him $1.
Yeah, they're basically counting donations in the box office total, essentially, is what they're doing.
And then Tim Pool can be like, this movie beat out Indiana Jones. Isn't that embarrassing? But moving on from that, I spent a lot of time talking about that, so thank you for humoring me.
Yeah.
In his semi-retirement, if we can even call it that at this point, we have a new joint from our man Steven Soderbergh. What the fuck is this?
Yeah, this is a new Max original show, limited series, I believe. And this is from Soderbergh and then Ed Solomon, the guy who wrote his previous movie, No Sudden Move.
Okay. Forgot about that.
This is much, I don't know, this is very different than that movie, though. That movie had like a tinge of comedy. But it was kind of a noir. This is like full-blown, like completely serious noir movie, modern-day noir. And I don't know, with modern-day Soderbergh, you never know what you're gonna get because he's so inconsistent. He makes stuff like, he can make Logan Lucky and Kimmy, and it could be great. Or he could make Unsane. I don't know if you ever saw Unsane, but it was awful. Or like even like Magic Mike 3 I heard was pretty bad. And then he can make something like No Sudden Move, his previous movie, which was just fine. And so he's so inconsistent in his later years. And I guess I'm here to tell you that this show is bad. This is one of the bad ones.
I was gonna carve out some time to watch this. Okay.
I don't know. It's very like amateurish, and that's another thing about Soderbergh is sometimes it seems like he's like really, really trying, and then sometimes it's just like, like it's hard to believe this is from the same guy who directed Ocean's 11 because it's so like underlit and like dark and very like amateurish in its filmmaking, where the camera is like swoops around for no reason, and like it's just weird. And the one reason,
his own cinematographer.
Yes, yeah, and so it's he just like seems to just try stuff because he wants to. Basically, he's just like, I want to do this, He's like a filmmaker's filmmaker in that way, where he's like, I just want to try this, and I don't care if it's successful or not. I just want to try this because I think it, is fun. And so, but the one thing I will say about the movie or the show that I guess is sort of a redeeming aspect of it is how like weird and like bonkers the plot is, because what this show basically is it's about a New York lady crime boss who's played by CCH Pounder, which is awesome. She's awesome in the show, and her son gets killed in like a gang hit, and in order to like gather advice on what she should do next, like her next move should be, she goes to like a voodoo practitioner who tells her that in order to get on her path to revenge for her son's death, she needs to kidnap the son of a local wealthy couple. And so like that's what she does. And in order to do that, she ships men from Guyana to the US, and then when they get here, she takes their passports and says, now you need to work for me. You need to work off your debt to me because I brought you to America. And then she's the one, they're the kidnappers, basically. And so it's all just really insane and batshit. And so it's fun to watch in that respect, but by no means is it a good show. And so
yeah, because that's intriguing. It gives me like Nicholas Winding Refn vibes almost.
Yes, very much so. It's very, very strange. And then, of course, because it's Soderbergh, he brings in all these really great actors like Timothy Olyphant, Claire Danes, fucking Dennis Quaid is in this playing like a celebrity chef, like a Guy Fieri type. And so yeah, there's a lot of great actors in it, but it's just, I don't know, it's just not very good. And it's very, like I said, it's very amateurish. And the actors in the show that are not the A-list actors are actually like really, really bad for the most part. Like some of the smaller roles are pretty bad, like badly acted. They're very almost like cringeworthy. Like, oh no. God, you couldn't have done another take of that. Like really,
or written some dialogue that at least served their ability a little bit.
Yeah. And so I guess I would say there's 2 episodes out right now. Maybe watch the first episode if the plot intrigues you enough, but it's pretty bad. So that's kind of where I'll leave it.
That's unfortunate.
Yeah.
Because I found myself very busy this week and very preoccupied because there was a lot of life going on, and I had to try and watch this movie twice. It didn't work out the first time. Second time it did work out. But I'll let you take it away. Here we are at the main event for the show today. We're talking about Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning, Part 1.
Yeah, so Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning, I believe, is another worthwhile entry in the Cruise McHugh team of Mission Impossible films. I don't think this series has ever been more confident and assured in what its identity is. Which is basically the very best in modern blockbuster filmmaking that Hollywood has to offer. It's a film that's full of memorable set pieces, convincing, realistic-looking action, endearing characters, both old and new, and phenomenal performances. And I think that, very few people would disagree with those sentiments, I believe, but any sort of complaints that you could have about the film honestly probably come down to the more preferential factors, such as the plot and the villain, which walk a very fine tightrope between hokey and cheese, or the sort of ever-looming shadow of perfection that is cast by this film's predecessor, or even like the story threads that are left dangling for next summer's Part 2. And so, for me, this is another winner. I think it has to be seen on the big screen. Like, I think that in a lot of ways, you would be an idiot not to go to it in a theater. It is not going to have the same effect watching it at home. And it was pretty incredible for me. And so, yeah, Chuck, what did you think of Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning?
It's funny because even though when I think about these movies, circling back to our long discussion about the prior 6 films and the perfection that you alluded to, what always seemed like weird to me or didn't make sense to me about Ethan Hunt's motivations finally kind of made more sense to me suddenly watching this new one. But it wasn't because of the lame introduction of the dark, mysterious origin to Ethan Hunt. I think you just have to remember what happens in the first movie. The first time we met this character, his whole team fucking died. And yeah, ever since then, it's always been a struggle to keep his loved ones and partners, upright and not 6 feet under. But I actually kind of finally understood what all the stupid "this is all about family" stuff actually is. It's this is a dude with a complex. And this is also where this series fully achieves the full potential as being the closest thing to Metal Gear Solid we will ever get on the big screen, which is fitting because Hideo Kojima wanted Tom Cruise to be Solid Snake in the Avi Arad movie that never got made and will never get made. But instead we get these, because this is where I don't know, there's just so many cool images throughout this, whether it's the vistas of the set pieces or, just the shot of that weird gas mask apparatus or the suitcase that has all those array of guns in it, that just get pulled out of it. there's just such a flow to this movie that, yeah, like you it's like walking a tightrope, but it's almost like this movie is like a ramen noodle on one of those like Japanese noodle bars where there's just a flow of water constantly sending fresh ramen your way, and you just like scoop it up. Like it's like every bite of this movie is like nearly 10 out of 10. But yeah, it's like sometimes you're not fast enough to keep up with it. There were times where I was like, wait a minute, like what is with this bad guy? And like, is it really that interesting that he just knows literally everything that's gonna happen? Because that's kind of the gimmick here. For like, why is this dude the bad guy? Why did the entity pick him? And what do we make of Isai Morales as his performance in this? Because I feel like if we had gotten something more there, this movie would have been much better served.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's hard to answer that question without having part two, and that,
I suppose,
that kind of comes, but because we know that he's a guy from Ethan's past, but we don't know the full details of that so far. When those scenes first started happening in the movie, those sort of very brief flashback scenes, I was like, oh my god, are they going to connect this to the first movie? Like, because that's what it looked like. It looked like those scenes from the first movie when Ethan's by like that sewer, like the sewer grate where the woman gets stabbed, and but then they didn't, of course. He's just from Ethan's past. He's not from the first movie, though. He's from ostensibly before that. And,
from his initial recruitment. Because because there is some bizarre end-of-the-line world building that they're doing where they're making, like, what exactly the IMF even actually is and how you get brought on board. It's like, they've like, what did you make of that? Like, was that successful, or did that just kind of get in the way of the movie?
Yeah, this movie, I put in our notes there that this movie does more for like the IMF than any of the previous 6 movies previously did, as far as like giving the IMF more of a backstory and kind of like cluing us into their recruitment process and their sort of weird little like mottos, like we live and die in the shadows for those we hold close and those we never meet, that sort of line.
Yeah.
And so it's sort of interesting in that respect, like that weird like that scene with the food delivery guy when Ethan's like, you almost got it, like, welcome to the IMF, so that it's kind of interesting from that respect. But I thought it was a little too convenient towards the end when Tom Cruise is like, I trust Kittredge and tell him that you want to become a part of the IMF or whatever he tells to Haley Atwell's character. It's very convenient. It's very like, especially when, Henry Czerny's Kittredge is sort of treated as the bad guy in the scenes preceding that, because it's this big reveal that, oh, he's the buyer. He's actually the bad guy, but then he's the good guy again all of a sudden.
Yeah.
So
because let's get into that a little bit more. Because I alluded to Metal Gear Solid earlier, but this is very, very similar to the whole underlying plot of Metal Gear Solid 2 Sons of the Patriots. Or Sons of Liberty, sorry. Where you find out that there's this group called the Patriots that is just 5 AI supercomputers, and they're secretly running the world. And that they are able to manipulate technology to put like false reality in front of you, so you can't rely on it. Like, was that an interesting choice, or were they being kind of lazy with their creation of the plot for these 2 movies?
I do think it's interesting.
Okay.
I like like I said, I think there are parts where the entity gets kind of cheesy, because especially like that scene when they're in the nightclub and like the entity is like all around them, and every time the entity shows up, it does that weird like sound effect, that like snake like sound effect, and so that it gets a little cheesy in that respect. But I like it overall because one of the things that Entity does as a villain is it strips the IMF of all of their tools, their camera feeds and their computers and their ability to hack into stuff and their even like their
communications
machines. Communications, yeah,
Yeah.
comms. It strips them of all of their the stuff they typically fall back on. And so I like it in that respect. And I also like it because, a lot of people I think are going to dunk on this movie because the AI thing is getting played out just because of our real life circumstances with AI. But I think the thing people need to keep in mind is that this movie finished principal photography in the fall of 2021.
Oh.
And so the script in that way, the script was probably written back in 2020. And so, none of this AI stuff was really going on when the script was being written and when the movie was being made. None of this. And so, maybe it was being hinted at, but you have to keep that in mind because it's not the movie isn't trend chasing. It's not, it's not doing the AI plot because of all the advancements that AI has made in the last year or so.
It's the same reason why what's that last James Bond movie, because that involved like vaccines and viruses, and that was written before COVID happened. It just coincided, as it were. But as a Mission Impossible movie, do the stunts deliver, or were there some sequences that you kind of wished would play out faster? It's maximalist, but was it ever excessive to you?
I think they sort of highlighted the wrong stunts when they were marketing this movie, because I think the best one's probably that car chase in Rome, which is just incredible. Like that was just like when they're trying to drive the car, but they're handcuffed together, and then you have Palm Clementif's character chasing after them in this Hummer. That the sound design in that scene too, just perfect. Every time that Hummer came on screen, it just roared like it was an animal or something. And gosh, that was really good. But and then the Orient Express scene. I mean, that was the other highlight stunt, which I thought was incredible. And the thing that I think they made the mistake of doing was highlighting that dirt bike jumps scene, because I think in this grand scheme of things, that was probably the lamest stunt in the film, because it's so perfunctory, and it almost seems to me, I have no way to prove this, but it almost seems to me like they didn't get enough usable footage when they filmed that, because it was very oddly like filmed and oddly edited together. And so, I don't know. What do you think about that?
Yeah, because apart from what you see in the trailer for that stunt, I think there was only like maybe 2 or 3 different angles that were given. And then they cut to, I don't know, like, is the shot of him like flying through the air with his face peeled back, was that him like actually doing it, or was that created in a in a studio?
I think it was in a studio, because I think that I think the actual the real part of the stunt, which is him jumping the dirt bike, I think what they had him do there was just do that and then like immediately open his chute in real life. But what they make it seem like he's doing in the film is that he jumps the dirt bike and then he falls for a little bit and then he eventually opens his parachute.
Yeah, and all the really thrilling stuff happens off camera, because he just comes flying in through a window and like perfectly like knows where to be to save the day. Because he's Ethan Hunt. So that's why we love him. Yeah,
I think you were right in that respect. I do think a lot of that was created in a studio, and like I said, I just don't think there was a lot of like usable footage there, because it was very perfunctory. It was so like he jumps and then this 10 seconds later the scene is over, and then cut to him coming into the train. And so it was fine. I mean, but like I said, that is the stunt that probably looked best for the trailers, and I understand why they used it. But there are many more better moments in this movie.
Absolutely. Like that whole part on the train where she's wearing the mask and and trying to be the broker, and I don't know, there was just a tenseness to it, because like she was out on her own basically. She didn't have the backup. Like I loved how Luther even was just like, "Hey, I'm piecing out till part 2. Like, don't fuck with the plan." You know, like, whatever you do, don't kill him, even though you're gonna fucking want to. Yeah, like, I loved how, like, they actually made Luther's, like, whole character more worthwhile in this, because he was the only one who could actually think the way they needed to overcome the problem. But yeah, at the same time, it was just kind of like, well, hold on now. Like, what is the, like, are we getting anything from some of these people? Like, what's the point of Benji if he, you know, can't do what he's supposed to do? The Simon Pegg, I felt very absent from this movie. He was mostly just there to react to stuff. But if there was anyone who, like, really got fucked over, it was Rebecca Ferguson's character. Why was she even in this movie? She was in this movie to die.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's probably the biggest thing that didn't work for me, was her death, because number one, I always think it's kind of lame when you fake people out in the beginning of a movie, but then you do the thing for real later in the movie, where they do the fake out death, you know, when they're in the desert, and then she dies for real, and it's kind of like, I don't know, it just doesn't work as well that way. And then they move, the characters move on so fast. Although I did like how Cruise, you know, when they got to Venice, you know, there's that scene with him and her where, you know, she's like, it's my first time in Venice, and they're on that rooftop, and then they do the exact same scene after she dies, with Ethan just standing on the rooftop alone, looking depressed. And so I did like that sort of juxtaposition. But yeah, her death was kind of very anticlimactic, and yeah, I really thought she was gonna kind of continue in the series as a character for like the rest of the series. But yeah, I guess not.
Nope, she's, you know, just another, you know, body on the floor, just like Claire from the first movie.
Yeah. And what about like the let's talk a bit about like the new supporting characters, as far as like, you know, biggest one's probably Haley Atwell, and which I think she's kind of a welcome addition to the series. I really liked her character. She brings kind of a dose of fun, especially in that airport scene where she's, you know, constantly eluding Ethan, and they sort of have a weird, you know, flirtatious attitude towards each other. So yeah, I really liked her character. What did you think of her?
I was fine with her. You know, like it was, I don't know. I'm a little tired of the femme pickpocket trope. It's like, it's just a little too easy to pick someone's pocket, in my estimation, because it happens like 50 fucking times in this movie. But like, at the same time, you know, they needed
close-up magic.
Yeah, exactly. They just needed somebody to fill the gap, you know, from Isla dying. So she gets to be that, and potentially she's the future of this franchise. If Tom Cruise ever takes a back seat, she's the next generation. You know, like, or I don't know. What about Shea Wiggum? What was the deal with his character?
Yeah, I mean, that was kind of interesting. I mean, I always love seeing Shea Wiggum pop up and stuff, because he's just a fun actor. I think he's a good actor, and yeah, he's just kind of the guy who always shows up a minute late to everything. And along with the other guy from Top Gun Maverick.
Yeah. God, but I did not enjoy his character or anything he contributed to this movie.
Yeah, he was kind of, I mean, he has that one scene where he's basically being like the voice of reason, where he's like, if I had the power, I wouldn't give it to anyone, you know, like type thing. And that was, he was pretty lame. But yeah, Shea Wiggum's interesting because, I mean, he has the best line in the movie when he's like, what is it? It's the Alec Baldwin line from Fallout where Alec Baldwin was like, he's the living embodiment of destiny or whatever.
And chaos. Yeah.
In this one, it's he's a shape-shifting, mind-reading incarnation of chaos. That's what Shea Wiggum says. And then the one thing, though, that I think is interesting with his character is, and I'm wondering if they're hinting at something more with him, because he has that line when in the train car he's talking with his partner, and he says, the guy asks him, do you know Ethan personally? And he says, I don't know him personally, but it is personal.
I think
and so
the
yeah.
whoever died in that flashback, I think had a connection to Shea Wiggum's character.
Okay. Yeah,
I
I
think
could see
that's what
that.
it's going to prove to be.
I could definitely see that. And so, yeah, I think we're gonna get more of him in part two, and I guess we'll just see where that goes. Because, but other than that, I did enjoy him. And how about Palm Clementif? What did you think of that?
Like she was kind of weird. You know, I didn't really understand what the point of her was. You know, she especially when he doesn't kill her, you know, and that creates the chain of events in the whole like fifth dimensional chess of the equation. Because by saving her life, you know, she becomes a liability to his enemy. So as a function of the plot, you know, that was interesting. Eventually, but I just wonder what they're keeping her around, and because I just wonder what her deal is going to be going forward.
Yeah, because she's almost, I mean, when she's still on the sort of villain side, she's almost like his like personal sort of assassin, and sort of a little bit unhinged, it seems like. And so, yeah, I kind of liked it in that respect. I did like that. Oh man, I was about to be so pissed at the end when, you know, she's like dying there and she's trying to get her words out. And I was like, oh my God, do not do the thing where she's about to say what she needs to say, but then she dies before she can. But I was so glad that she actually got it out. You know, she got out submarine and the name of the submarine, and I thought they were gonna do that fucking bullshit. I hate when movies do that when the person dies before they can like pass along the information. But yeah, she's gonna, I guess, be a part of the team going forward, and I guess we'll see kind of how that plays out. But as sort of a function of like the unhinged villain character in this movie, I thought she was fine.
Oh yeah, and like I don't know. She just kind of reminded me of like one of those the boss characters like from like John Wick, you know, like they got to give me some more, give me some more background of her, because this leads me to ask, what is part two going to be? You know, like, is this kind of has Kill Bill problems where, yeah, we barely got a movie here. We got a lot of good sequences, but like we're smack dab in the middle of a story. So like they're going to hop on a submersible and try and beat the bad guy to the bottom of the ocean.
Yeah, that's sort of what it seems like. I don't know how far down the sub is. I guess we'll have to see. Again, you know, it's funny, you know, as we were saying before with AI and this sort of film lining up with current events, we're going to do some sort of submersible sequence around the time all this Titanic shit's going on.
That hadn't even occurred to me.
Yeah. And so yeah, I think that's what it's going to be. It's going to be kind of a race to the submarine. I'm sure there's going to be more to it than that. But yeah, we're going to hopefully get more of the backstory between Ethan Hunt and Gabriel. And then there's going to be, you know, I feel as if there's still going to be a twist with this AI character where, well, I think what's going to happen, what this film is eventually going to lead to is the AI is going to predict something that Ethan needs to do something or else he won't complete his mission. But that something that he needs to do goes against his like entire character, his entire being. Ooh. Like he's gonna have to, the AI is gonna predict that he has to kill somebody, or the AI is gonna predict that he needs to do something that just goes against his morals and beliefs, or else he's gonna fail. And then Ethan's gonna have to like reckon with whether or not he has to do that or not.
He's gonna give him a Rachel Dawes versus Harvey Dent paradox.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. I think so.
And I think that's, you know, kind of right on the money. I just don't want them to pull the thing where they go down, they crack open the weird computer that needs the cruciform key, and they're gonna open up and they're gonna reveal an even worse AI. and that the AI that they've been battling the whole time was like, no, don't you understand? It needed to be destroyed. I was trying to save us all. You know what I mean? And it was the good guy the whole time, and they were the bad guys. That'd be really dumb. But the one twist I do want to see happen is I want them to actually get James Cameron to play himself as an IMF agent, and he's just the subs guy. He's the submersible guy. I want them to do that so badly. That'd make me pleased as punch, even though it's silly.
Yeah, that would be so fun. Well, one scene there, like, we haven't talked too much about the specific scenes in the movie, but the one scene I want to get your opinion on is this scene, this like 10-minute exposition scene towards the beginning of the movie with this group called The Community, that features cameos from like Mark Gatiss and Charles Parnell from Top Gun Maverick, and Indira Varma from Game of Thrones, and Rob Delaney from like Deadpool, among other things, and then Cary Elwes, of course, and Henry Czerny. And all of those people are in this, except for, I guess, Henry Czerny's in more of the movie and Cary Elwes is in more of the movie, but all the other people are in this single scene. And it's just this like 10-minute scene of these government officials like talking about like the philosophy of like AI and like how much power government should have. I don't know. What did you think of that scene? Because it sticks out to me.
Yeah, it's really bizarre. But yet again, it's Hideo Kojima is just sitting in a theater in Japan going like, yes, this is the way. Because this is exactly how it, like, I recently started Emmy, like I downloaded like what I could get for the Metal Gear Solid games, because I wanted to play Subsistence, the version of 3 where you yada yada. But I was just reminded of that because that's literally how all these games begin. It's like 10-minute long codex sequence where you get an expedition dump and like people just talking about, concepts and philosophy and war and bullshit. And yeah. So I was sitting there and I was just in my glories. I was like, yes, do this. Like hide Tom Cruise from me. Because we don't get the opening sequence. We don't get the Mission Impossible. Da-da! We don't get that until like a half hour, 40 minutes into this fucking movie.
Yeah.
That's so because there's a 10-minute expo dump before we even get some action sequences.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was very interesting how late they put that in the movie. But yeah, I did like it too. It's just stuck out to me. It's one of the scenes
because they've never bothered with that kind of thing before. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And then you have all that. I loved all the imagery too in this film of like going back to like more analog stuff, like all of those like secretaries who were typing on typewriters in the background, and then later in the movie when they go to that war room that has all of like the Cold War equipment set up and like the reel-to-reel tapes and stuff. All that imagery was really, really great, and I hope we get more of that in the next one.
But what I appreciated about, like, I guess the messaging, if there is any, about just the complete reprehensible, moral decay within the military-industrial complex. Because you have these intelligence bureaucrats, people who, if you know me, I have no love for them. They're doing exactly what you would expect them to do, which is shake hands with the devil and make a deal with him, thinking that it would work out in their favor the best, because they are the elite and they know better. So, on the one hand, I want the AI to crush the government, the federal government, completely. Like, I okay, take over. I'd be fine with that. But that's why Ethan Hunt is the best, because he just wants to kill it. I don't know. Like, I just want more of an actual personality to come out of this thing, because I guess we do kind of get that with all its like little games, the mind games it plays, and the words it will put into the mouths of the people you love. So I don't know. It is kind of freaky, but I don't know. I'm rambling and I've lost my point. I don't know. I almost like. I think I'm gonna like the collective whole of this movie when we finally get it a lot more than I like part 1 on its own. Because you are right. It is a lesser version of the 10 out of 10 movie that we just got from them previously. But
yeah,
it still is fucking better than anything else in theaters right now.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean, definitely. And Yeah, and I don't think a lot of this movie will get a lot of criticism for being only like half of a movie, and I I don't think that it's not as egregious as something like Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse was, because that movie, I know you haven't seen it and I won't spoil it, but that movie literally ends at a point where like it doesn't wrap up anything. It literally ends on a literal cliffhanger. Like a character is about to talk and then it ends. And this movie at least wraps up, a couple things and sort of sets up the adventure for the next time. And so I don't think it's as egregious as that, but um once we have the whole picture, once we have both of these films, that sort of criticism sort of has to fall away because it can't really be used anymore, I don't think, really. So
yeah. Because, who wants to watch a 5-hour long Mission Impossible movie? I guess I wouldn't mind that, but you're not going to make a lot of money at the box office doing it. So, yes, stretch it out, do what you got to do. But are you ready for them to be done making these?
I really was hoping that, Dead Reckoning Part 2 was going to be the last one, because if we get more, I'll see them. Certainly, I will go and see them, but I would rather them just put a period on the series, instead of a comma. Like, stop putting commas on the series and put a period on it, and like, just all good things must come to an end. Otherwise, they risk the chance of becoming bad things.
Yeah.
So.
Because we don't want bad things. Because I've heard rumors and speculation that they had to de-age Tom Cruise quite a bit in this film. Did you?
Oh, for sure.
You think that's genuine? That there's some credence to those rumors?
Oh yeah, for sure. I think that I don't think. I mean, it's not as they don't have to do as much as something like Harrison Ford and Indiana Jones, or Samuel L. Jackson in Secret Invasion, but I do think they have definitely gone in and erased the forehead lines and the crow's feet and the cheek wrinkles. They've definitely done that for sure.
Okay, so because that brings up something that also came up, that because we've been talking about the flashback a little bit. They initially had wanted to just give us a full-on young Tom Cruise pre-MI1 doing whatever happened in his dark, mysterious past, kind of like the Dial of Destiny, where the beginning of the movie was going to be a full-on flashback. And they chose not to do that. Was that the right choice?
Yeah, I think so. Because when in those scenes, those flashback scenes, you just see him sort of in shadow, and so you can't, tell who it is, obviously. And yes, I think so. It's just too distracting to have a fully de-aged person on the screen. It always distracts more from the movie than it should. It's just something you're always thinking about. It still doesn't look quite convincing enough, in my opinion. And, what happened to the days when we, instead of doing de-aged people, we just use younger lookalikes? Do that, cast an actor that looks like a 25-year-old Tom Cruise instead of doing all this de-aged stuff, because it's not as distracting then.
Yeah, because for Dr. Sleep, who did they have being Jack Torrance again? Was that the kid from E.T.?
Oh no, yeah, it was. What's his name? Henry something. I can't remember the actor's name, but yeah, they did. You're right. And then they had an actress, a lookalike, play Wendy too, and so that was, and they were perfect. They were perfectly fine. I mean, you're not just sitting there the entire time thinking about oh, that CG looks like shit or something.
Yeah, there you go, Hollywood. Stop being dicks. It's not all about just capturing people's facial compositions and biometric data.
Yeah.
But is this the movie that's going to save Hollywood collectively and Paramount Pictures as a whole. Like, what is riding on this movie and part 2, like acing the test, getting the assignment complete, and making everybody happy?
Yeah, so what you're referring to is, if people didn't see this, a very, very, I guess, famous, what's the term for, not like a stockbroker, but
like a financial analyst, like a
financial
Wall Street analyst.
Yeah, he basically said Paramount Pictures has a max of 2 years left before they need to start, selling themselves off, basically. And then he pointed to all these figures that, basically show that Paramount is borrowing way too much money and they're way too much in debt. And their streaming service, Paramount Plus, really isn't doing any favors for them. And so, he basically said they have 2 years or less before they're gonna have to go defunct. And yeah, it's interesting because it's interesting that Top Gun Maverick couldn't save them. That movie did so incredibly well, and it really didn't make a dent in their debt. And I don't know if you believe this guy, if you believe this financial analyst, I don't think that either one of these films alone could save them either, because their debt is in the billions. And so we will see though, because the movie is doing amazingly. I mean, the movie is doing it's on track to, I think, do a little less than Top Gun Maverick did in its first weekend, I believe.
Okay, because it's following the trends. It's Zaslav, what's even the word for it? Like the deconstruction, effort of Hollywood that he's kicking off, because when all of these companies were deeply in debt, and they all are finding themselves in precarious positions. Like, not to get too lost in the weeds, but you have Bob Iger literally saying, "Yeah, I don't know about this whole TV thing." Not streaming. He's talking about TV in general being something that Disney isn't sure they want to be a part of anymore. So yeah, everything's just kind of on the chopping block if it isn't delivering. But yeah, I think this time next year, Paramount is going to be wholly part of the Netflix umbrella. I think that's because that's what the rumblings are saying. And Netflix needs the studio infrastructure, and that's how Netflix becomes one of the guys, so to speak. Like, they get to be one of the main tentpole players beyond just streaming. Now they have a foothold in theaters, and they can kind of take their know-how and deliver it that way. I think that's where it's going. No matter what Tom Cruise does to try and forestall it, eventually he will just be making movies for Netflix someday.
Yeah, I could see that. But yeah, we will see. As of right now, part 2 will be out in about a year. It's on track for summer 2024, and apparently it's wrapped filming. It's already been filmed, and so we will see what the SAG strike, the effect that has on this. But yeah, we should be getting another one of these in about a year.
All I hope is that we get more Gonzo. I want it to lean even harder into its Metal Gear Solid like replacement theory thing that I have going on here, because but more like, you give Palm, I can't say her name, Clementif, give her an even more exaggerated outfit, like let her control the bullets through luck, make that happen. Because moving on to the mentionables here, Digital Foundry, I've never, I guess, watched them before, so what are they about?
Yeah, my mentionable is the YouTube channel Digital Foundry, which they are like a gaming tech analysis brand, I guess, where they review game performances when video games release, as far as if they're in a good state or not, because unfortunately nowadays a lot of games get released in unfinished states and they perform like shit. And then they also do just like tech reviews of new graphics cards, new gaming peripherals, stuff like that. And I did want to shout them out because I have tried to get into Digital Foundry like numerous times over the years, but it's always been way too dry for me and like boring. And they have in the last year or so, they've gotten like a revamped style. They've really like reinvigorated themselves where, they're doing videos that still get the information across, but they're shorter, they're more concise, they are more fun, and they are just like a lot more fun about their stuff. They're less dry about it. And the one video I would point people out to is that I would send anybody watching this to is they uploaded a video the other day, like 2 days ago, where they did a like tech review of a Last of Us ripoff game that's on Nintendo Switch.
I watched that video.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's called The Last Hope, I think, and it's just hilarious to watch them like rip stuff apart and point out that a lot of this game's assets are just from some like shady asset store that they bought for like $2.99 or something like that. And I can wholeheartedly recommend the channel now when I don't think I could have in previous years, but it's a lot of fun.
Right on. I'll have to give them a click because in the spirit of finally feeling free to recommend something, one really just can't be like, hey, you really should watch that Steven Crowder show. Watch Louder with Crowder. I really can't advise that anyone do that. I would do it just for like political commentary purposes. I'd want to check in with the Cringe Fringe and see what they're having to say. But there was always this guy, I guess two gentlemen rather, they're up on the screen right here, who always like kept me like paying attention. They were the funnier ones, often the more insightful ones. Oh god, I'm blanking on their fucking names right now. I can't believe I'm doing that. Dave Landau on the left and Quarter Black Garrett on the right. Quarter Black Garrett was a producer on Louder with Crowder. Landau was his guy in the chair who would, kind of like pop in every once in a while and like actually say something funny. Like that's he's what kept me watching half the time. But eventually their efforts weren't getting appreciated by that man. So now they're doing their own thing and it's called Normal World. And they're doing a lot of like the same sort of thing, where they're skewering parts of modern culture, and making edgy jokes. Like their first episode that I watched, they did a full-on like 15-minute like fake 30 for 30 episode about the Smear the Queer League. If you ever played Cream the Carrier, it just depended on where you lived. But it's like they did everything right. The music, the narration, it's well produced, and it's fucking funny. But unfortunately it does involve having to like see people like Brendan Schaub. I don't know if you're familiar with him.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. But like they have him playing a CT riddled full-time queer player, because like professional Smear the Queer gaming or use where one person has the ball and everyone else just tries to hit him and make him cough the ball up. And if you're the all-time queer, you're just always getting the shit beat out of you. So like they're making fun of the NFL and CTE, but then you have Brendan Schaub like taking a gun and putting it in his mouth, and a producer saying hey, like, and taking it away from him. So like it gets really far. It does get kind of fucked up. But that's why I appreciate it. And I'm glad they're still doing it, because they were off the radar when there was like some kind of non-compete that Crowder had on these guys. So they couldn't do anything for a while. But yeah, fuck that guy. But you should probably see Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning, because I finally fucking figured out what the name is supposed to mean. Just now it clicked. I can't believe it.
The subtitle?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it finally clicked, because they have to go analog. It's like, we can't trust our instruments. We can't trust the computers anymore. We gotta go with sundials and compasses. So we'll see you in 2024 to check in and see if this movie's sequel, closes the circle well enough. Probably don't watch Full Circle, from what Matt said. Sound of Freedom, watch it if it seems like something you want to watch, or if you just want to be mad about it, you could do that. And, maybe, give a cup of soup and a baked ziti to your local actor or screenwriter friend. They're gonna need it. But we'll see you all next week when we convene to watch the longly awaited and hotly anticipated Oppenheimer. I am hyped. You all should get hyped. Have a good week, everybody.
Yep. See ya.